what sort of games, because not all games are equal. I get very annoyed when people talk about games in the same way that I get very annoyed when people talk about TV or film or the internet, because they're not all the same and there are different things, and some things are good and some things are bad. So what sort of games do you think are good for your mental health, and what sort of games do you think are bad for your mental health? Let anyone jump in who's got like a quick answer. Matt!
So, as you mentioned Fortnite a second ago, you can play Fortnite and it can be really fun, play it with your mates, or you can be one of the toxic people who goes on and screams at the top of their lungs and gets properly angry and furious. That is when it's unhealthy. So it's more about the environment that you that some people can be put into. In terms of the games that I like to play to help with my mental health, so I think there are times when you want to play something to savor it, like if you go and watch a really good movie. But then there are games that you want to play to sort of the pass the time sort of thing in an enjoyable way. And those are things where I play games that have massive like collectibles, that have massive open worlds that are endless, because you know that you're not gonna run out of time. You don't have to think about what you're going to do afterwards. So it really depends on where you are. But an awesome thing about video games is that you are actively engaged rather than just sat watching Netflix and just sat there on your phone. You're playing and you're using the left side of your brain, which is your problem-solving side, which means it allows you to get away from the thinking and feeling side a little bit. And you're solving puzzles and you're interacting with story and you're seeing new things. And it's a really safe way to really carry on interacting and thinking and feeling. And so that's why it's so wonderful. And I think it's superior to reading books. Because there's a lot of stigma about gaming. So you're wasting your life doing this. Well, fuck you. I'm happier than you would be reading a stupid book.
Well, I mean, I like books, so I'm going to like back. But no, I mean, it's like I always say about D&D. It's like D&D is one of the most creative, problem-solving, skill-based games, things that can make your brain think in a way. And I totally get that. I mean, I can't watch Netflix without playing Hearthstone or Solitarica or something like that at the same time. I need to have to, but that's probably more about my ADHD. But we'll get on to neuroatypicalness in a minute. Alex, what about you? What do you think are good games, bad games for your mental health?
It's an interesting question because I'm really struggling to think of a game that's bad for my mental health per se. I would say that in terms of a game that's good for my mental health, it depends what I'm looking to feel like. If I want it to be an outlet for my frustration, then it's really good to play like a game with a lot of violence and a lot of punching and like just to get out all the rage. And then like if I want something more therapeutic, I can easily play like a puzzle game or a game that looks really beautiful or whatever else. But I think in that sense, gaming is almost therapeutic because you're doing something with your hands, but you don't have to focus too much. The same way as a knitter would knit, or you could do some colouring. It works in that way. But in terms of a game that's bad for my mental health, probably one where I'd be in such a mood in like, say, a boss battle that's really hard and I keep dying and have to keep going, that I wouldn't stop. I'd just keep going round and round. And at that point it would become bad because I'd just get too frustrated and I wouldn't be in the place where I tell myself, okay, I need to stop now, because I'd be so obsessed with beating it. I'd just carry on. This is probably an example of a game for my mental health. But that's all I can come up with, really.
Yeah, no, I had.
You've just made me think of.
Well, I'm going to talk over you, Matt, this time. The first Dragon Age game where I stayed up, I was on the final boss battle, and I got to the final boss battle at about midnight, and I stayed up till 6 a.m. I didn't sleep that night until I finished it. And that's not a healthy approach. Sorry, Matt, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say you made me remember that playing The Last of Us Part 2, if I played that, there are times when I played that would be really bad for my mental health, because it's such a powerful game, but with such dark subject matter. That's a game you need to be in a ready to engage headspace, because if not, it can really drag you down.
Jem, what about you? What's good and what's bad?
There's so much. This is a massive. This is an episode in
sorry,
itself.
Next 5 minutes if you want.
I mean, I think it depends on my mood. So if I'm like really angsty, then I just want to go and beat stuff up and get some stress out. And then other times I just want to not have to think. I just want to go into when I don't want to have to think, then I'll play something like a matching game, or solitaire, or something that just there's almost a mindlessness going on there. And then there's the other times when I just want to step out of this world. It's just too much, and I just want to go somewhere else where I'm a hero and I get to do all this cool stuff, and I get to run around and cast spells, or I'm a massive fantasy sort of fan, and I think for me that I like to just step into that sometimes and just be that person and not be worrying about the state of the world and all of those things, and not be a mum, and just be some like usually bikini wearing sword wielding whatever, but that for me is a really good, and I'm so excited about the idea of proper immersive VR and all of that for those reasons. I think where it can be, where the problematic games are, as we've said, the frustrating games, the ones where you just suddenly find yourself, some games, especially ones that are just another round, just another bit, just some more wood, whatever. Those ones can get that you suddenly find yourself an hour later and you're getting, I find with me that I get this sort of frustration, but I just can't step away. And I think sometimes that can be really, and then you do, and you're like, no, that actually this wasn't fun, this was just getting annoying. I don't know if we're going to talk about gaming addiction. I would say a big area
into that. That was my but that's fine, just shout it out there. But no, I mean, because I think so COD would have been my example of a bad game, of which I've played way too much, and because, as you say, you get into that cycle, that sort of like, right, just load the next game, and it does become very hard to walk away. And I mean, so I think I've actually got some statistics here on gaming addiction. I say that because it's like, are they going to come off in a second? So I think it was 2018 when there was the DSM, whichever it is. I have a master's degree in psychology. You think I'd be able to remember if it's DSM-5 or DSM-6, but whichever one decided to actually classify gaming addiction as a thing. And there was a lot of hoo-ha about it at the time. I mean, frankly, an addiction to anything is not anything, but anything that interferes. Generally, the psychological definition is if it interferes with your day-to-day ability to function. So when you are ringing up work and saying you can't come in because you need to play a game, when you are telling your friends in a pre-pandemic world, I can't come out tonight because we have to game, that is where we're talking about sort of possibly the dangers of addiction. But what I found really interesting was the article, like I was pulling it up and I was just sort of like, and there was the first one that came up was, you've heard the headlines, video games cause addiction, but actually they show that they relieve anxiety and depression. And it was just like,
I found the same. Yeah.
All the science behind it shows that actually we're probably talking more positive than negatives. But Jem, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, well, I looked into it too, because we were talking about it today, and also I was looking for a image for our YouTube thumbnail. And do you know what was really interesting? When I put in gaming and mental health, all that came up, well, not all, but the vast majority of images that came up were for gaming addiction, which is really interesting, given that you know, as you say, the research does not back that up. And I found some research from Oxford Science Institute where they, back in 2018, where they thought 0.03% of gamers are likely to have a problem, you know, moderating their gaming. And I think, you know, that has changed a little bit since then. And they're now thinking it could be anywhere from 1 to 10%. But even if, you know, that's still pretty low, actually, you know, and I think it's something that we need to be really conscious of, because I think that when it happens, it can be devastating and it can be extremely problematic. And I think that as, you know, gaming becomes more of a sort of part of our lives, like it's available on our phones now, which it wasn't sort of, well, not in any sensible way in 5-10 years ago. So I think, you know, it isn't necessarily just because now there isn't an addiction issue doesn't mean that down the line there won't be. And I do really worry for the younger generation and who are growing up with games, with this constant hit, this constant what is it, the I'm always forgetting what it is, the
dopamine.
The dopamine hit, the reward center of the brain, and the impact that it has on them. And I think that, you know, this generation is going to be the first that's grown up having that from birth, basically, and we don't know what impact that's going to have on them. So I think the gaming addiction at the moment is very overhyped, and I think it's more to do with society's general fear of the unknown. You know, it's like video killed the radio star. I mean, come on, you know, we've done it with every new tech.
I did think it was interesting, though, our little point here from Ketch about the fact, because as you say, like in terms of the generation coming up, about like loot box gambling and stuff like that,
yeah.
And the way people the way that sort of microtransactions and DLC has, like, I mean, I know I'm guilty of, like, I played way more what's it, I was going to say Fall Guys, God. Last summer, oh my God, I couldn't stop playing that game, and part of it was I want to unlock some more things.
But that is a problem, and it is a real problem for people that have a sort of addictive nature. You know, and that's the thing. You know, addiction is something that affects people, and it's just what your poison happens to be. And you know, and so I think somebody who's addicted to, say, gambling could very easily become addicted to loot boxes and other gaming related issues, you know, and I think that's where the problem lies, and I think there is some onus on the game designers and the games companies to think that through. And, you know, in the same way as we're asking supermarkets to not put sweets by the checkout because it puts so much pressure on parents and, you know, shopping with their kids in the before times, you know, I think we need to ask a similar thing of game designers to actually factor in people's mental health when they're designing games.
Alex, have you played Fall Guys as well, didn't you? I
have, yes.
Did you feel the addiction?
I felt similarly, yeah, because I was just like, you know, it's at the beginning of the levels, it's so easy to get to the next level because it's like every time it fills up, it takes longer. So naturally, you'd spend like 3-4 hours on it, and you'd be like, oh, I'm on level 9, I just want to get to 10, and then it's an even number for those of us that are slightly OCD about that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I've had times this year where I've had a new game or a game that I'm really into, and there's just those things where it's like, oh, just this one more side mission, etc., etc. And I've missed Zoom meetings or forgotten to eat because I've just been too into the game. Having said that, though, I remember when I was writing my undergrad dissertation, and I forgot to eat when I was writing that as well. But that's like, I don't know if that's just because I don't check myself often enough or check the time. But yeah, it can happen whatever you're doing, really. But yeah, definitely happens in gaming.
Matt, you ever had a problem with an addiction to a game?
No. Gaming has only ever been profoundly healthy for me.
Yeah.
One thing that comes to mind is my relationship with God of War. When I was first one came out when I was 11, and my parents bought it for me for some reason. And I was profoundly repressed as a child, very quiet and repressed. So I gravitated towards playing as this hyper-violent rage machine, where he will destroy an entire world just because he's angry, and nothing else matters more than his anger. So that just it's all love. So so I haven't got very much to say because it's just only ever been profoundly positive.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, I do have an addictive personality type. There is no doubt about that, and it is something for me. And it is often the achievements, and that's why I find the loot box gambling stuff like really. For me, it is just like I need to complete the achievements. I need to complete the levels. I need to get to the next bit. I need to just get this little bit further. And so it is like there are times where it is, but I am luckily a very well-balanced, healthy adult now. And normally can manage it okay, but it's definitely, I see how easy it is to fall into. And I do worry about the amount of money that some people spend on. I mean, when Rust made its massive popularity a few weeks ago, because somebody Twitch streamed it and basically it just like shot up. Now, Rust has been out for bloody hell, 5 years I've been playing it now. And about 3 years ago, they started releasing skins for things like clothing and guns and various things. And at first they were all like £1 on release. And the way that Rust does it is they charge you basically £1.50 to £3.50-ish for the ones that they release that week. And then they're never buyable again. But you can trade them on the Steam market, on the Steam community market. And I mean, I'm not joking when I say I've probably in total made somewhere nearly 100 quid altogether off just sensible selling of skins and stuff like that. So I'm partly participating in this. But, the fact that somebody will spend 55 quid just to have the blackout hoodie that the Twitch streamer that they love wore is just like, no, that's not okay. Slightly get off the point, but it is one of these things that's when we talk about the bad sides of gaming, it does worry me how much money some people are willing to throw at things for no reason. But anyway, so back to the actual topic. Sorry, I got sidetracked there, which was, and again, none of us are mental health professionals.